mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 5, Episode 9, the penultimate episode of the entire series of Insecure, entitled Out, okay? This episode, I think, was a really, really good episode that we should have gotten like 6 or 7 episodes ago. I've talked a lot about this season, about this show, acting as if it doesn't know it's on its final season and kind of moving at a really slow pace, kind of, I don't want to say wasting time, but like, I think it was last week's episode, the one before that, which essentially just gave us these long dream sequences to tell us information we already knew. And that is literally kind of like a waste of an episode when you're dealing with such a tight space of only 10 episodes that are most of them less than half an hour apiece. This episode set up things that would have been really great to play with for the entirety of the season, but now we only have one episode left, and they just got to wrap it all up. And it's a real disservice to what I think could have happened this season. Let's say this episode happens in. Let's say this episode, the events of this episode happen in episode 3, something like that, episode 2 maybe. We get the whole rest of the season for all of these different groups of people to contend with what happened and come to grips internally and deal with that with each other. Lawrence and Issa would have to deal with what Lawrence said to her, and they could play with that over the course of the rest of the season and how that affects Lawrence and condolences. They could have played around with Lawrence and Nate. Lawrence and Nate would have had to contend with their, scuffle throughout the course of the rest of the season as well. Nate and Issa would have to contend with what happened at this party. Issa and condolences would have to, like everybody involved in this would have to contend with the after effects of this and just process this and deal with it. And that could have been something could have been entertaining to watch and to see them have to grapple with for, say, 6 or 7 episodes as we close this thing out, rather than to just now it's like, okay, you have this explosive moment that could have put things in an interesting direction to play with as you wrap things up, but now you don't have time. You just got to just wrap it up next week. And I hope that this last episode is like a bit of an extended one. And I'm not saying it has to be like an hour, but maybe give us like 40, 45 minutes, something, because there's so much that they could have done and now can't, and so much that they did that they didn't have to. It's a shame, but on its own, this was a really good episode. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened here and give my thoughts, and that'll be that. So obviously the main thing that happened here is the dust up between Nate and Lawrence at the end, after Lawrence, as soon as condolences leaves, he's like, all right, time for me to be a shark in the water seeing blood. He, confesses all of this, all this love he has for Issa and all of this, and Nate overhears it. Justifiably is pissed off, and they don't quite fight, but they do that whole thing where like they kind of pretend like they want to fight, but everybody's holding them back. In reality, that's not a thing. Like, you just don't want to fight. Like, if you wanted to fight, wouldn't nobody be able to hold you back? But that's neither here nor there. They deal with that, and it's interesting the way all of this kind of played out throughout the course of the episode, because you had it earlier. They set it up from the beginning, right? Lawrence didn't even want to go to the party at first. He gets there. Everyone there notes the other person's attendance. So like Nate notes Lawrence, Issa notes condolences. She notes Lawrence looking over at Issa and Nate. Like everybody's kind of like noticing everything. So then you have the passive aggressive barbecue conversation that took place. That was wildly immature and childish. Like, okay, what are you guys, 12? Like, what kind of that to me, that's coward shit. Just say what the fuck you gotta say. If you got a problem with dude, say, I don't like this, whatever. Don't have some chicken shit, cowardly ass conversation masked behind barbecue shade. Like, that shit's puss. Let me stop. I was losing my I don't want to call it professionalism, because I stand by my true to nature self on here, but I almost got a little bit too true. Too true for a minute there. But I don't respect that. I don't respect passive aggressive bullshit. I think that's cowardice on the face of it. So anyway, we have the dust up, and there's a couple of things that I want to talk about first before I kind of wrap up what happens with the Lawrence and Issa thing. And not really wrap up, but there's a final kind of like a bow that I want to put on it, kind of. And I got to talk about other aspects of the episode first before I can finish up that area of the conversation. So, well, it's not a conversation; it's a monologue. But we also see in this episode Torian and Molly's relationship move forward. And I found this to be one of the better parts of the season, actually, because watching them both get progressively higher was fun to watch. Especially Torian, because he's been so tight wound throughout the whole rest of the series that to see him kind of loosen up and just be high, and that was like his idea. He was actually like unintentionally funny. Like the whole idea, like yeah, like he has like these edibles in like this gift box, and Derek's like, you brought trash to my going away party, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna find a dumpster for this bullshit. Like it didn't even sound like what he would really be saying, because he was so awkward in that moment, trying to not be business professional Torian, trying to like loosen up. It just didn't really work for him, and I thought that was endearing. I thought that made his character look good. So then they take the edibles, and we see them get progressively higher. I love the scene with them eating all the food. I thought all that was great. I liked, Molly's over laughing in the kitchen, and then the slap, and what in the open fuck is wrong. Like I love all that, everything that was tied to Molly and Torian, I thought was really good this week. But the part of it that I really want to kind of put a spotlight on is the comparisons that we can draw between the two, I guess, sets of males that were at this party. Because, Dro shows up, and Molly has, a whole, obviously, a justified kind of like apprehension about him being there because of the, everything that they've done. And, Torian walks up while Dro is essentially just saying, like, I'm letting you know I'm divorced. It's not a thing where I'm letting you know, like, it's something you need to know, but I just wanted you to know straight from me, and I was just telling you, and that's it. And Torian walks up, and because Molly is high, she totally overshares and tells their entire history. And I think that partially because Torian is high, but I don't even really kind of want to downplay what he said by saying that it was only because he was high, but I think the highness was a factor. But, he was totally kind of like cool with it, like, oh, okay, so that's what happened? Cool. And he was like, everybody has a past. I had a past too. And he shows a remarkable amount of maturity in the face of a really weird situation. And I think it was aided by being high, but I think that still shows us that Torian is a level of maturity that Lawrence and Nate can only dream to achieve in maybe like the next decade, because they were complete opposite. You were allowed to juxtapose the two male figures here. You have Torian being mature and understanding that people have a past. Molly's going to have a past. He's got his own past. There's no reason to make shit awkward present day because of their past. And then meanwhile, you have Lawrence and Nate having passive aggressive beef over barbecue and fucking coming to blows and shit like that. And to a degree, obviously Nate is justified in being pissed off at Lawrence, but still the comparison is there to see what the ideal reaction to a woman's past, what that looks like versus what the childish response to a woman's past looks like. And I thought the episode did that really, really well. So that's kind of what I meant when I said I kind of wanted to tie the two things together. I liked the light that was shown on Torian, and I like that when you compare it to the behavior of Lawrence and Nate in this episode as well. A couple of thoughts, and my thoughts to wrap this up are going to be, there's kind of like even a little bit more of a bow I want to put on this as well. But first thought, Chad, as usual, was great. I loved how when Lawrence goes, Issa's going to be at this party, he's like, who? He's like, oh, girl. Oh, yeah, she gonna do it. Like, he immediately knew who that was. It wasn't like, I know who that's talking about. He completely just continued the conversation when he said, oh, girl. That's the kind of comedic timing. I don't know this guy's name, the actor that plays Chad, but his comedic timing is impeccable. And I really feel like he should get the same amount of love that Natasha Rothwell gets for playing Kelly. And I just kind of did it myself by knowing her name and not knowing his. But that's also because she was on White Lotus. So when I was covering that, I was a little bit more in tune with the names. And plus, the show itself doesn't even respect Chad enough to have him on here to the same degree that they have Kelly. But I feel like those two are like comedic, the number one comedic female and the number one comedic male, and one is drastically underutilized, but I think equally as talented. We really missed out on Chad this season. And also Chad is inadvertently, via actually trying to talk sense into Lawrence, inadvertently puts the battery in his back to have this confrontation in the first place by saying he didn't fight for Issa. And I think that was an interesting move to make too, because it's Chad meant well. Like, Chad has generally been the kind of guy that gives the shit advice. Like, he's all about partying and fucking, and like he's not the one you would go to like for the most wholesome advice. But he's actually telling him the right thing, but he just doesn't know it because he doesn't understand that Lawrence is too much into Issa still, that was actually going to gas him up. So like, I like how he inadvertently put the battery in Lawrence's back. And then I also, again, when we talk about this juxtaposition and what allows you to compare the behaviors of multiple characters, Nate also has the battery put in his back by his boy from the barbershop after he comes to pick up those keys. So like, just like you could compare Torian as one set of male there to Lawrence and Nate, you can also compare Lawrence and Nate to each other into how they ended up in that place at the end. So all that was like really good writing, I think, on for the writers of this episode. And let's see. The last thing. How about Issa's brother ended up in a relationship within all of 5 minutes of meeting someone? Like I don't even think it might not have even been 5 minutes. It might have been 5 to 10 minutes in like real life party time for them. But for us as like the viewers, it was literally like 3 to 5 minutes of runtime before this was his man. And I thought that was really funny. So, wrapping it up, I thought this was a really good, really solid second to last episode of the series. I just think it was collectively, when looking at the season as a whole, we're kind of look at this episode and think, what could we have gotten if we had gotten this episode at episode 3 as opposed to episode 9? I think that's just how I think when we look back on this show, we're going to look at it for the moments that it was great, but we're also going to look at season 5 as the season of like missed opportunities to like really close this thing up and wrap it up well, but not so much a failure. Like, I don't want people out here comparing it to Game of Thrones, which like totally just like fumbled the football at the goal line. But I think that this show could have ended better regardless of what happens next week. This show could have ended better, and I think we're always going to look at it with that asterisk. Like, you remember when Insecure was popping? Yeah, but that final season, they really just didn't quite knock it out of the park with that one. And I think this is kind of symptomatic of how they didn't end up in a place where we can look back and be like, this is how you wrap up this show. Because we spent too much time taking things slow as if it wasn't the final season, and then we ramp shit up to 10 on the second to last episode and don't give these characters time to fully play out the consequences of something like that. So, great episode, not great placement, and the season's kind of, it's not stumbling to an end, but the season as a whole, I think this will not reflect well in hindsight. But I don't want to go on a sour note. Again, great episode, and I will see you guys next week for the series finale. Peace.